I didn't stop it in time again. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Morning Grind. I'm your host today, TJ Zwarych. I believe you'll have the main man, Stevie CPFL, back next week. But that doesn't mean we're not going to be here this week to break down Friday's huge 14-game slate. I am joined by my guy, Keith Eyster. Eyes, how you doing?
Pretty good. Yeah, big old slate here that we got to break down. Short slate on Thursday night, so we finally get a full slate of action back for MLB. But I had a nice little Cub stack. I don't know if you saw the incident between Michael, Derek in chat just said, Keith, wipe that smile off your face because of the events in the Cubs-Cardinals game. Derek, of course, a Cardinals fan. I'm a Cubs fan. But yeah, Michaelis ejected after just 2 outs. So hopefully nobody played Michaelis Thursday night.
That second one that he hit Hap with, that was just like the most obvious looking weird, but like he just like looked like he threw like a hey, trying to get his attention type ball at him. Yeah. So that was definitely an interesting situation. But those watching us live on YouTube or even on YouTube Friday morning, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell, all those good things. As well as if you're listening to us in podcast format, make sure you leave the Morning Grind podcast a nice 5-star rating, whether you're on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Let's start diving into this one because we got a lot of games to cover. My dog Obi-Wan is excited about it. Everybody's excited about it. It's 14 games. It's a lot. So let's start getting into it. We got the Yankees at the Orioles. No total yet in this one. Garrett Cole, Grayson Rodriguez. How much interest do you have in Garrett Cole at $11K going up against Baltimore?
Yeah, most expensive pitcher on the slate, I believe. Yep, just double checking that he is. Not the best matchup here, and it has not exactly been dominant Garrett Cole this year. We're used to seeing his strikeout rate up above 30%. He's down just under 28% on the season. I mean, you can always play him. I will have some exposure. He's a tournament play only for me. It's Garrett Cole. He can go out and strike out 10 at any time, but he's not my favorite pitcher in the top range. Just don't love the matchup against Baltimore and that strikeout rate being down. Now he's been in awesome form. He's got double-digit strikeouts in each of his last 2, but that was against Kansas City and Colorado, 2 of the worst offenses in baseball. The Colorado start was in Coors, but I'm still just kind of basing that performance off of the matchup, and he falls 3rd or 4th on the list in the top range of pitchers for me today.
Yeah, I agree. He's a great tournament option, always has the upside. Definitely never somebody you want to full on X out of your pool unless he's getting crazy ownership. But I think he's going to make for a great tournament option. It's going to depend on his ownership for me. If he ends up being one of the chalkier guys, I'll probably go underweight. If people are overlooking him because of his price and because of the tough matchup against Baltimore, then I'll probably try and get a lot of Garrett Cole. What about Grayson Rodriguez on the other side, 6,300? For me, this is almost like if Judge plays, I'm probably not going to play much Grayson Rodriguez. If Judge doesn't play, I think he's probably one of the better cheap tournament options on the slate.
I think I'm interested whether Judge plays or not, just because of that price tag. It's a massive slate. I'm not sure how often we need to go down here, but he is definitely my favorite option under 7K today. He's flash strikeout upside. He's been hit around a little bit. Pretty decent start his last time out against a tough Tampa Bay team. He did start another one against the Dodgers since coming back. So I feel like he's figured some things out since returning from the minors again. He's had 2 really tough opponents, and he's gave a pretty good account of himself in both starts. So I'm interested even if Judge is in the lineup. Judge is out of the lineup, I will definitely have a lot of exposure. If Judge is in there, then it's going to be an ownership thing and then just building some lineups and seeing how often I need a cheapie.
Yeah, I think that's very reasonable. I'm definitely going to have more interest in him if Judge is out. But I think regardless, he's a top prospect. He struggled when he came up. He looked good in his last starts. He's so cheap that with the strikeout upside he has, I just kind of feel like I have to keep him in the pool because he could score 20 plus points at a 6.3K price tag. And if he does, you're definitely going to want to have him. And so I'm very similarly on the same page. What about the New York Yankee bats going up against Grayson Rodriguez?
Yeah, interest on that side as well. The Yankees, like Judge being back would be a huge plus. I don't love that he's 6K in his first start off the IL. Hopefully that comes with lower ownership because of, I think people are just going to wait and see how he looks. He's been out for almost 2 months, I think. It looks like June 3rd was the last game he played. So we're very rapidly approaching the 2-month mark. But I mean, he's a guy who could come back and hit 2 home runs. So, and he lengthens the lineup as well. I think Torres would be my second favorite option, and then Rizzo. A couple of young guys that can help fit those top guys in. Volpe and Peraza have been in the lineup quite a bit here recently. So it's lukewarm interest, but I'm definitely interested in Rodriguez. Like you said, really good prospect, but he has been hittable in his short time in the big leagues.
Yeah, exactly. And so I don't think I have a ton of interest in the Yankees on such a big slate, but if I was running MME, they would definitely be in the pool. And I feel similarly to Judge as I do Cole. If nobody else is going to be playing him, I'm going to play him because it's Aaron Judge. If he's chalk in his first game back at 6K, well, then I'm probably going to be underweight and just let him get back into things a little bit. On a 14-game slate, I think we can just X out Boston. I think we can just X out Baltimore going up against Garrett Cole.
Yeah, I do agree.
Save some time, move on to the next game. We got Philly, we got Pittsburgh. No total in this one either. We got a bunch of I'm basically just going to skip the totals because we have so few of them at this point. It's such a big slate and there's still a bunch of questionable pitchers. And so it seems like they're just kind of waiting a while to fully finalize this stuff. And so we got Zach Wheeler pitching against Mitch Keller. Two other higher price pitchers on the slate. Do you have any interest in Zach Wheeler in a pretty strong pitcher's part going up against Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I really like the matchup here for Wheeler. I really like the park upgrade. Philly is one of the best hitters parks in baseball. Pittsburgh, one of the best pitchers parks. So massive upgrade here for Wheeler. Well above average on the strikeouts, over 27% this season, and that walk rate is under 5%. So excellent skills here from Wheeler. Pittsburgh's a below average offense at least. They don't strike out a ton, but Wheeler has the type of stuff. He can get the strikeouts. He's under 10K. I'm very interested in Wheeler in the spot.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's just a very nice price tag for him. I kind of view him similarly as I do Garrett Cole in this spot from a raw points perspective, and he's just $1,200 cheaper. So I like that one. I also did find some totals. It's an 8.5 total in the Yankee game and with the Orioles, and it's an 8.5 total Philly versus Pittsburgh. How about on the other side of this one, Mitch Keller, lights out at the beginning of the year, struggling more recently. If he came at a discount, I think maybe I'd take some shots, but at 9.6, that's just an X for me.
Yeah, it's a tough price tag. We have a ton of options in this range because it's such a big slate. Philly is a very powerful offense. They can certainly give him problems. I like the ballpark, but I don't love the matchup. If he was in better form, I would have interest. He'd be right in that group with Wheeler and Cole for me. But I don't think because we have so many options, I don't think we need him today.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. Offenses in this one, I think you can take shots on Philly. I have no interest in Pittsburgh, but Philly going up against Keller, who's struggling a little bit. Like, I don't know about a full stack, but a guy like Schwarber in this spot or a mini stack, I like quite a bit.
Same page on Pittsburgh, no interest there. And Philly, I think you can definitely hunt home runs here, and I'm looking to do that with lefties. PNC Park plays friendlier for lefty power, so Schwarber and Harper are two of the best lefty power bats in the game. I don't mind Bryson Stott because he plays a weak second base position. 4,100 is about right for him. He's got a little bit of pop. And then Brandon Marsh is the other guy, just super cheap. If he hits a home run, you're looking good. But I'd either just put two or three of those lefties together or just simply one off looking for a home run.
Yeah, that does feel too cheap for Brandon Marsh. I didn't even notice that. So that's a great call on your part. I like the idea of just doing the Harper, Schwarber, and either Stott or Marsh mini stack, hunting for the home runs, like you said, against Keller. So maybe not a full stack, but I would have interest in this spot in hunting for some home runs. We got the Angels and we have the Blue Jays, 8.5 total. Not 100% sure who's going to be starting this one for the Angels, but it does look like Lucas Giolito is going to be making his debut for the Angels. Not sellers. Ohtani's off the market. They're buyers. I'd love to dive into that with you, but again, it's a 14-game slate. We got to keep rifling through it. Giolito at Kevin Gausman. Do you have any interest in Giolito in his first game with the Angels going up against Toronto?
I don't know that I want to do it against Toronto. What is his price tag? Do you have it there handy?
Let's see here. I don't even think he's in the main spot for DraftKings. So he's 9,600. And he currently is listed as playing for the White Sox on DraftKings.
Yeah, so he may not even be available for us to use. Even if he is available, we can make this pretty easy. I'm not interested against Toronto.
Unavailable.
Yeah, I'm out.
Gaussman on the other side of things, somebody who can always put up a huge game, one of the highest strikeout rates in the entire league this year. He has randomly struggled in some games on occasion, but for the most part, he's been one of the more consistent high upside pitchers in baseball this year. 10-8. Do you have any interest in Kevin Gaussman?
I love Kevin Gaussman in this spot. He has one of the highest strikeout rates in baseball among starting pitchers. He's top 3 in that regard, right behind Strider and Ohtani, I believe. The Angels lineup without Mike Trout, they've got a couple of other injuries. Drury's on the IL, Rendon's on the IL. It's a weak, watered down lineup without Trout in there. Ohtani's obviously amazing. He's the best player in the world. He's very scary, but outside of that, I'm not scared of really anybody in this Angels lineup. I'm definitely chasing some Gaussman strikeouts today.
Yeah, I think he's my SP1 on the slate from a raw points perspective. The only way I'm not getting there in a line is if I can't afford him, or I'm trying to really differentiate and get different. I think Gaussman is going to be my top pitcher today going up against the Angels. Yes, Ohtani is terrifying, but outside of him, it's not like that lineup is that scary right now. Gaussman is, I'm not worried about him facing lefties. With that splitter, it's not really an issue for him. And so I'm all aboard Gaussman. He's my number 1 pitcher.
Worth noting that Ohtani did leave the second game of that doubleheader. I'm guessing it's just because he's amazing. It was a really long day. They said it was cramping, so I expect him back in there, but it is worth noting. Just keep an eye on that. And while we're on that subject, what a dude, man. A complete game shutout in game 1 and a double dong, 2 home runs in the second game. Just absolutely incredible stuff we're seeing from this guy.
This is probably the most talented athlete in their sport right now that we've ever witnessed. Like, just the things that Ohtani is doing, like, obviously we'll have to wait and see if he is able to maintain this, keep doing it at the same rate that he has been. But like what we're seeing this year, this is one of the most impressive individual seasons in the history of professional sports. Like, absolutely. If not the most. It's incredible.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm with you. I hope he rests against my Blue Jays. I'd love that. And if he did, if that happens, I think Gaussman is like bar none. No competition anymore as to him being the best pitcher on the slate. I wouldn't care about ownership. I'm just playing as much Gaussman as humanly possible. I wouldn't have any interest in any Angel not named Shohei Ohtani. So if he's in the lineup, I think he's a great tournament play because he can hit anybody and he's always great. And if he's out, just fire up all the Gaussman and don't play any Angels. But I actually really like Toronto as what I'm assuming will be contrarian stack in this spot. They're not that expensive. Bichette is the most expensive at $5,300. Guerrero is 51, still way too cheap for how he's finally been back to hitting the ball like himself again lately. The place I like targeting Toronto the most is reverse splits right-handed pitchers. And that's what Lucas Giolito is. Toronto is filled with amazing right-handed bats that, weirdly enough, are almost all better against righties than they are lefties. And so a reverse splits right-handed pitcher, even if he's a good pitcher like Giolito, I don't really care. I think Toronto makes an awesome tournament stack.
Yeah, I'm with you. We talked about Toronto's splits a little bit when I was on with you earlier in the week. There's just so many power righties in this spot, and that is Giolito's weakness, right-handed power. So there's some strikeouts in this lineup. They could struggle, but Giolito coming over to a new team, like, going to be unfamiliar for him. I really think the Blue Jays could get to him pretty heavily. And like you mentioned, like, we're used to paying over $5K for a lot of these guys. Only Bichette and Guerrero are over $5K. Love the Chapman price at $4,600, Springer at $4,800. Cheapies like Varsho and Belt, they're lefties, but I mean, if the righties beat up Giolito early, you're going to get several at bats off the bullpen too. So I don't mind playing the cheap lefties or the cheap catchers either.
Yeah, like Danny Jansen, as long as he's in the lineup at 2,800. To me, that's one of the very best point per dollar plays on at any position on the entire slate. Like, not that we want to be game log watching, but pull up this dude's game log, and in the games he starts, last game he hit a home run. Game before that, he had a bases clearing double in his one pinch hit at bat. Through the last games he started before that, home run, and 2 games with just a walk, home run, game with just a single, home run. Like, this guy has been hitting with so much power this year throughout the entire year, and he's 2,800. It makes absolutely no sense to me. I think Toronto makes for a great tournament stack. Even if you want to do just like a Jansen Bichette Guerrero mini stack, I think that is very high upside as well. Next game we got on the slate, we got Cleveland, we got the White Sox, 10 total in this one. Xavier Curry facing Touki Toussaint. I don't think we're pitching either of these pitchers tonight, and I feel like we can just X. Am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely, definite X buttons for both. The Xavier Curry price tag is a miss by DraftKings. He's only going to throw like 40 pitches probably. He's 9K, no chance there. Touki Toussaint was off to a great start. He was getting very lucky, and that's all kind of come crashing back to earth here recently. He's been beaten up in his last couple. No thanks on either one of these guys.
No, 14 game slate. You don't got to take chances. Like Toussaint, you can argue it's like, well, he's really cheap. Maybe I want to keep him in my pool. But on a 14 game slate, I still don't think you have to. Let's go right to bats in this one. Do you have any interest in Cleveland going up against Toussaint?
I do. I don't think Toussaint has any skills really whatsoever. I think the success he was having was completely fluky. Cleveland's been a lot better here recently. They're starting to hit with a little bit more power, and they're cheap. Ramirez is 5,800. That's fine. He's one of the best hitters in baseball. Naylor has been on fire. He's only 4,400. Kwan is coming off a great game, 4,200. Jimenez is 4K. Naylor is a cheap catcher at 2,800. If Fry's in the lineup, like I want to stack up Cleveland for sure. I just don't think Toussaint's any good.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. Cleveland is absolutely in play. It probably will be home run hunting for me. Maybe a little J-Ram and Naylor as opposed to a full stack. I just never really liked full stacking this team. I want to include Bell and Naylor together, and you just can't. And so it'll probably be a mini stack spot for me. What about the White Sox going up against Curry and this likely bullpen game?
Yeah, bullpen game on a full slate is probably something I shy away from, especially with a well below average offense. I'd be looking for one-offs strictly here. You can always play Robert. You can always play Eloy Jimenez. Jake Berger hit a home run Thursday night. He's 3,900 still. That's probably about where it stops. Vaughn, if he's in the lineup, but I'm just looking for a home run here as a one-off probably.
Yeah, same here. Maybe a home run one-off, and I'm probably not touching anybody else. Too big of a slate, and we still do have some really, really strong offenses in some great spots that we haven't gotten a chance to talk about yet. Next one on the slate, we got Nats, we got Mets. Max Scherzer going up against Mackenzie Gore in this one, 8.5 total. Do you have any interest in Mackenzie Gore going up against the New York Mets?
I do have interest in Mackenzie Gore. That's why I said below 7K is because Gore is 7,300. He's just got big strikeout stuff for this price tag. The Mets, again, failed as pretty much chalk on Thursday night. They're just an offense that seems to struggle way more than they should. It's a fantastic pitcher's park. Mackenzie Gore has that, like the Mets don't strike out a ton, but Mackenzie Gore has the type of stuff where he can rack up some strikeouts, even against a high contact offense like the Mets. 7,300. I'm fine chasing some strikeouts at that price.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. Tough matchup going up against the Knicks, going up against the Mets. It'd be if he was facing the Knicks, I'd be locking in Mackenzie Gore if he was facing the Knicks in this one. I can't imagine any of them would get a hit off of him. But the Mets, I like Gore for his price tag. And so I agree, 100% a tournament option as an SP2 today. What about Scherzer on the other side, 9,400? I think that's a great price tag for him. We haven't seen the same strikeout upside throughout the year for him as we have in the past, but this is still a great pitcher with a long leash. in a low strikeout matchup, but not that tough of a matchup.
Yeah, very low power on the Washington side, and that's been part of Scherzer's problems is the home run ball. He's been very inconsistent this season, like you mentioned. The strikeout rate, like Cole, is not where we're used to seeing it. Maybe he's washed. I don't know. I'm willing to chase him for the rest of this season at least. I still feel like there's double-digit strikeout upside in here every time he takes the mound. 9,400, a very fair price for this matchup.
Yeah, Jeff and Chad making a great point that maybe the reason Curry's price is always so messed up on DraftKings is because they think it's Steph and they just assume there's going to be a lot of 3-point bonus for him, and so he gets that high price tag. But yeah, similar thoughts for Scherzer. It'll be pretty ownership dependent for me, but I feel like I'm more likely to take shots on him than somebody like Garrett Cole, just because he's in a similar bucket to me as Cole and Wheeler. And for his price tag, 9,400, that's more than reasonable to me. What about bats in this one? Do you have any interest in Washington going up against Scherzer? For me, I think it's probably still just CJ Abrams is too cheap. Maybe if I want to do a mini stack with Candelario, I'm good with it. But those will probably be the only two Washington bats I look at.
Yeah, no real interest for me in Citi Field. Abrams is the guy. You get some stolen base upside there as well. If you're looking for a home run, it's probably Candelario, but that's it for me as well.
Mets going up against Gore. I don't think I want to do a full stack, but Pete Alonso at 4,900 is one of the best one-off plays on the slate, I think. We're expecting Vientos to be up at the top of the lineup again, and so if you need a super cheap first base option, I guess he is viable. Same thing, like Lindor, it's fine if you want to get to him. Nimmo has been great this year. Pham is nice and cheap, but this isn't a team on the top of my list.
Definitely not on the top of my list either. Gore is a guy that can struggle with control. I still don't love the ballpark. I love stacking against pitchers that struggle with control, but on a 14-game slate, one of the best pitchers parks in baseball, I probably don't end up there, but I don't think you're crazy if you wanted to throw in a Met stack. I do love your Pete Alonso call.
Yeah, it's just too cheap for him. They lowered his price because he was struggling, came back too early from that injury, but it looks like that power is starting to come back. So yep. I think we want to get on that Pete Alonso train before he's priced up near 6K again. Milwaukee at Atlanta is the next game. 10 total in this one. We talked about how there's going to be some offenses we want to target, and there's a reason why we might take shots on $6,300 Grayson Rodriguez. There's a reason why we like $7,300 Mackenzie Gore. And it's because this matchup is Adrian Hauser against Yanni Chirinos, and Atlanta Braves are, even though it's a Coors game, still the top offense on the slate. And so Hauser and Chirinos, X and X, we don't have to worry about it. Let's talk about the bats in this one. Who do you like on Milwaukee going up against the low strikeout Yanni Chirinos?
Chirinos is a tough guy to stack against for me. He does not strike anyone out, but he just constantly tries to pitch to contact and tries to get ground balls. I think you're looking for fly ball hitters here and you're just home run hunting. It's hot everywhere right now, and home runs are starting to fly. So certainly don't mind trying to find a home run here. Frelick, the young outfielder for the Brewers, is probably my favorite one-off. Yelich is too much of a ground ball profile. I don't mind Adames if you want to do that for something more expensive, but Frelick at that price is my favorite option.
Yeah, Frelick would be mine too. And while I agree with you 100%, it's kind of tough to stack against him. But the one place I feel differently is I agree. I like the home run hunting, but where I think Milwaukee could pose some serious value on this slate is in that back half of that lineup, the middle of that lineup. You just skip Yelich and Adames. And you think, hey, well, I want to have a lineup with Gausman and Wheeler, and I still want to be able to pay up for a couple nice bats. And so you play a Milwaukee stack of Frelick, Monasterio, Bryce Turang, all of these guys below 3, 4, and under. You mix in some Owen Miller, whoever, depending on this lineup that we get, and you just skip Contreras, Adames, and Yelich. And you have a wildly cheap stack for a lineup that in case you want to double pay up at pitcher.
I like that idea. I can definitely get on board with that. Good call.
Atlanta going up against Adrian Hauser. This is the top stack on the slate. In my opinion, I would imagine when we are looking at projections, when this all drops on Friday morning, I'm going to assume going up against Adrian Hauser, Matt Olson will be the most likely player to home run on the slate, even though there's a Coors game. They're expensive. You got 3 guys over $6K. You don't get a discount with Austin Riley anymore. But they're going to be tough to get to, but this is still such an amazing offense.
Yeah, top raw offense on the slate, even above Coors. I'm completely with you there. They are getting really pricey. They're making it as difficult as they possibly can to just keep jamming in Braves every day. 3 guys in the 6K club. That's amazing. But I think you've got to find a way to make it work. They're just so much better than everybody right now. They have one of, if not the best matchups on the entire slate. Hauser's just a really weak pitcher. The Braves are absolutely elite, so find a way to fit him in.
I'm seeing right now if it's just possible at all. I don't think I would want to take shots on Dunning or Smiley. Weirdly enough, I would have a slightest amount of interest maybe in taking a shot on JP Sears, even though he's playing in Coors. But just looking at like the most reasonable way we could do this, say I go Grayson Rodriguez and Mackenzie Gore, since those are just 2 guys that we've talked about already. With Rodriguez and Gore, if I wanted to start the top 5 projected guys in that lineup, Murphy, Olson, Albies, Riley, and Acuna, it's physically possible with Rodriguez and Gore. It leaves
2,100 per bat.
2.033 per bat. And so with its 2 outfield spots and a shortstop, you never know. Maybe you can find 2 2,100 guys and a couple 2K guy and you just throw them in there. But Obi likes, it has nothing to do with my wife being home. Obi just likes the Braves. I think you're likely going to have to mix in Marcelo Ozuna, at least 1 to probably 2, but at least one of Ozuna, Harris, and Rosario, the 3 outfielders in your lineups. And then maybe I don't think you want to shy away from Orlando Arcia either, somebody that nobody ever plays. He's one of the cheapest Braves, and he's having a very, very good season.
Yep, completely agree.
All right, who do we got here next? We got the Twins at the Royals, Sonny Gray, Brady Singer, 9.5 total in this one. Do you have any interest in Sonny Gray?
I don't love the price tag for Sonny Gray, but I do love the matchup, which means he probably stays in my pool. I don't love to play Sonny Gray because he walks too many guys. He doesn't have the longest leash, and it just feels like he doesn't strike out enough guys. He's right around league average with the strikeouts. He's priced more like a guy in the 25 to 26% strikeout range, but he's down at 23.5%, and his walk rate's over 9%. So not a guy I play a ton, especially when he's up in the 9-10K range. But this matchup against Kansas City is too good to ignore. He's going to be in that bucket with Wheeler and Cole that are deep tournament plays only, and it's dependent upon him being low owned.
Yeah, feel very similarly. I think I'd drop him below the Scherzers, the Coles, the Wheelers for me, but he's in the 150 max pool just because he's playing Kansas City. Brady Singer this is a guy who was just pretty awful to begin the year, showed flashes of upside every now and then. He's actually been quite a bit better recently. He's got a long leash. He goes over 90 pitches basically every game. He's gotten up to 108 recently. Minnesota has some power, but they also have a lot of strikeouts. Can we play Brady Singer on this 14-game slate?
This is an extreme boom bust spot, and I know he used to have a massive problem with lefties. I'm looking that up on the fly here so that I can just speak intelligently about it, because Minnesota's pretty left-handed. He has allowed looks like he's fixed that problem to lefties. The slugging allowed is actually higher to righties. Strikeouts, let's see here, and he's actually striking out more left-handers than he is righties. So he's definitely fixed that issue, which makes me feel better about targeting him even more here.
That's how you get the Braves. If you want to stack the top 5 in the Braves, that's how you do it right there. Grayson Rodriguez and Brady Singer.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, and if Rodriguez comes in higher owned and Judge is in the lineup and I'm looking for a pivot, I'm okay with Singer. I definitely prefer Grayson. But Singer, like you said, the Minnesota is the highest strikeout team in baseball. So I could definitely see him having a really solid game. 6,400, you don't need much more than 15 to 20 points.
And that's exactly it, right? Because even if, say, Gaussman puts up a 30 piece, has a great game. Cole, 20 to 25, Scherzer, 20 to 25, Wheeler, 20 to 25, and Grayson Rodriguez and Brady Singer each put up 18, 19. And you played them together because you stacked the Braves, and the Braves had 14 runs. Olsen had 2 home runs. Acuna had 3 hits and 3 stolen bases. Riley hit 1 out. Albies hit 1 out. That's something they can do. The Braves do that have done that on multiple occasions throughout the year. So I actually don't think that's a crazy strategy, even though the pitching is so great on this slate and so vast, so many options. But Rodriguez and Singer, they're 2 players that, yes, their floors are -10, but their ceilings are in the 20s. They're 2 guys that could absolutely get there. And so for their prices, I think they're fully in play. What about the offenses in this one? Kansas City, I have no interest in just that. Yes, they have some good bats, but it's too big of a slate. But Minnesota against Singer, to me, that it's like you said, it's a boom bust spot. I want to play Singer and I want to play the bats against him. Minnesota, outside of Buxton and Correa, and even those guys aren't very expensive, this team is so cheap. I consistently love the idea of just going to Julian, Kepler, and Kirilloff or Larnack, whoever's in a good lineup spot, or Jeffers at a full out punt mini stack. Like, just include your Julian and Kepler in there, and you get and you pick one other person for a mini stack. Maybe not a full stack spot, but you throw in Wallner, because this is a dude that's got so much power and he's 2,100. So play Kepler, Wallner, and Julian. You got a wildly cheap stack, and maybe that's the team you pair Atlanta with.
Yeah, I love using the cheap part of this. I'm interested in the full stack as well, including Buxton and Correa. Singer is a guy that we've seen get hit around plenty throughout his career. He can lose his command at times. So definitely interested in the Twins. I just saw that Polanco, it looks like we're projecting to be activated tomorrow. Checking his price, he's 4,400. I don't love that. He's been out for almost 2 months as well. If I was hoping that Polanco was really cheap. That might mean Julien's not in the lineup, or someone that we've been used to seeing over the past month or two. This lineup could look a little different if they activate Polanco, but the rest of them, like, you're still going to see Kepler and either Larnack or Kirilloff in there.
If I'm not mistaken, Julian can play third. I could be wrong on that though, and so I could definitely see with Lewis and Miranda still being on the IL. Gallo and Kirilloff, they've been banged up a little bit. I could still see Julian in there.
One of them could DH
around that infield until they get more healthy.
Yeah, it's certainly possible both of them are in there. It would be Farmer that's out in that situation, right? Or
yeah.
And then, you got to see what the lineup looks like.
Yeah, you see what the lineup looks like, but then this also would be the case where if Farmer is out, Julian is in, you would have to worry about that pinch hit risk. But Singer's also a guy that they leave in there even if he's getting lit up. They will let him go 100 pitches so that they can salvage the bullpen, even if he's given up 5 or 6 runs. And so I still think as long as he's in that lineup, all of these Minnesota guys are interesting. I'm with you. I was looking at the cheap guys and I was like, well, I don't really want to do a full stack of all these cheap guys. But yeah, you pick 3 cheap ones and then you throw in Correa and Buxton, and then all of a sudden that's a pretty great full stack. So I'm with you there. I think that makes a lot of sense. Next game on the slate, we got a pitching matchup: Shane McClanahan, Christian Javier. Where's the total in this one? Why isn't it showing up in lineup HQ for me? There we go. 8.5 total in this one. Do you have any interest in Shane McClanahan going up against the Houston Astros, who are now healthy and looking more potent?
I don't know what this guy has to do to get his price lowered. He's been dealing with, I think it's a back issue, and he has not been going deep into games. He did get up to 86 pitches in his last one, but he got hit around by Baltimore. Shane McClanahan, when he's right, he's one of my favorite pitchers to roster in DFS, just because he has massive strikeout stuff. but I'm not convinced that the back is healthy. And Houston is now much healthier now that Alvarez and Altuve are back. So a much stronger Houston lineup. He's fully priced, 10-4. I don't think I get there just because I'm worried about that leash with him. Tampa Bay always has a quick hook, and now it's a bit of a tough matchup here against Houston. They're a much stronger lineup than we've been used to.
Yeah, I agree. I just want to wait and see on McClanahan on this one. It's possible he's back, he goes 100 pitches and he's great. But even if that's the case, it's still Houston who have great platoon righties and then 5 all-stars. So now that Houston's healthy, I've liked targeting pitchers against them while they were hurt. Where there was no Alvarez, no Altuve, no Bregman. The only the guy in that lineup you're really worried about is Tucker for right-handed pitchers. But now that they're all healthy, I don't want to, especially on a guy like McClanahan who's been struggling. What about Javier on the other side of this one? He's also a guy who struggled compared to his last year numbers. All of a sudden started pitching very poorly. Last 2 games started looking a little bit better with the strikeouts, but then still walked 6 guys in his last start. Having said that, he's 8,600. There's upside at that price, but a lot of risk too.
A lot of risk. Tampa Bay is a very good offense. They probably overachieved this season, but they're still solidly above average at least. They just may not be top 2 or 3. But there's still a lot of strikeouts in this Tampa Bay lineup. The one thing, and I'm checking, we have 4 lefties projected. Javier has one of the widest strikeout splits. Like he strikes out a massive amount of righties, and he's more close to average against lefties. Projecting 4 lefties to be in the lineup for the Rays. So that's a slight downgrade. If one of them would happen to sit and we only get 3, then I'd bump him up. He's still in the tournament pool, I think, just because he's a guy that can go out there and get 9 or 10 strikeouts. That'd be very useful at 8,600. But I think the likely outcome is he either walks way too many guys to pitch deep enough, or he just straight gets blown up. It's a very risky play. I think he'll be in the pool, even if I'm doing like a 20 entry max. I think he would maybe make 1 or 2 of those, but deep large field tournament only.
Yeah, agreed with you there. Only large fields, only if you're playing multiple lineups. And I think he'd be one of the last guys to make my pool, I think. Just kind of on the edge there for me. What about Tampa Bay going up against him? He walks a lot of guys, so I think the full stack is absolutely in play. You do have to worry about pinch hit risk with this team quite often, but they also have some guys like Mejia, Walls, maybe Yandy Diaz, who could all be out for this one. So that might limit things slightly. I think this is a great team to look at your favorite sports betting sites and see if they have any odds that are kind of off the mark. And if you can get Brandon Lau for plus 500 somewhere, or Josh Lowe or Luke Rayleigh for plus 450, 500 somewhere better. I think that's a great spot to hunt for home runs in this spot with those lefties. How do you feel about Tampa in tournaments?
Yeah, home run hunt is exactly what I was going to say too. He's a massive fly ball pitcher. I think you could do the full stack because he can walk plenty of guys in front of the guy that hits the home run. And he could give up multiple home runs as well. It's lefties first for me. The ones you mentioned are exactly who I'm on. Lowe, Rayleigh, Lau are those 3 right in the 4K range. Love all 3 of those lefties. Full stack is in play, but Javier is a good enough pitcher when he's on that they won't be one of my higher exposure stacks. I prefer to hunt for home runs here, I think.
Yeah, you got to keep them in the pool and get exposure to the full stack for in case we're getting high walk Javier. But just in general, kind of expecting a median outcome, Tampa wouldn't be near the top of my list. Their ceiling and their range of outcomes, I think, is among the highest on this slate. But their median outcome, I think, is going to be a lot lower than most of these other teams. Houston, I think, honestly makes for a great tournament contrarian stack with how much McClanahan's been struggling lately.
Yeah, they're really expensive, which is the problem. I mean, now that Tucker and Altuve are back, you've got 3 guys above 5K. McClanahan is good enough. I think I probably don't go there today. I don't know. Baltimore got him for 5 runs. I guess if you get that same type of thing, it's possible Houston could pay off these prices. Tampa Bay does have a weak bullpen as well, so that's a boost here. They're a little bit pricier than I would want for the matchup, but because of McClanahan's struggles, maybe he aggravates the back and comes out of the game super early. They are in play, but I won't have a ton.
They're a team that if I was playing, I think 10 lineups it'd probably take about 10 for me to get there. But what I would want to do in tournaments is something very similarly to what I was talking about with the Braves, and just do like pick my two favorite cheap pitchers and roll out Alvarez and Tucker, who literally no one will play in a lefty-lefty matchup. But it's like you said, we're not necessarily playing for those guys against McClanahan as much as what if they get to him. The Houston's patient. What if they get to him and McClanahan's out in the third inning and we just get 5-6 innings of bullpen? Play Alvarez, Tucker. Bregman has been one of the hottest hitters in all of baseball. Pena will probably bat second against the lefty. McCormick and Abreu and Julks, all strong plays against lefties. So I actually think this makes for a very strong contrarian tournament option. Would be tough for me to get there in like a single entry, 3 entry max, but anything more than that, I would definitely want to make sure I get some exposure to this team. We got the Cubs and the Cardinals next in this one at the Cardinal Stadium, 8.5 total. Your guys against Derek and STL Cards' guys. Do you have any interest in Drew Smyly going up against the Cardinals?
So I need to preface this game with the trade deadline is fast approaching, and both of these guys are squarely on the trade block. So make sure you're paying attention to news, even if they're announced confirmed as starters. That doesn't mean they can't get moved at like 4 p.m. and then you've got a lineup sitting there with these guys in there. So make sure you're keeping an eye on trade deadline news, because either of these guys could get moved prior to the game. Smyly is super cheap. The Cardinals are too good against lefties for me to want to chase it. He can have random spike strikeout games, but I don't think this is a spot. We've talked about 2.6K pitchers I think are in play already. Grayson at 7,300. There's plenty of cheap options. I don't think I need to chase Smyly.
No Smyly for me. Montgomery, I think, is maybe in pool if you're can be in your pool because he's got a nice cheap price tag as an SP2. I'm not going to target him. I have no interest in being like, ooh, yeah, I want to make sure I get Montgomery in X amount of lineups. But if I have 8,100 remaining, I'm probably okay with him landing in my pool, but he does definitely fall below a guy that's only $400 cheaper than him in this tier for me.
Yeah, I agree. That last part right there. And I think I'd just even rather go down to Grayson Rodriguez than play Jordan Montgomery. The Cubs have been solid against lefties. There are strikeouts in the Cubs lineup, so it is a decent upside spot. I think the risk outweighs the upside for me.
Yeah, I feel very similarly to him as like Javi here. I view them in the same bucket where it's like they will be right on the edge of my pool. If I try and keep a tight pool, I'll X them out. If I'm expanding my pool because I'm not playing very many different stacks, then yeah, maybe he makes the cut. What about offenses in this one? I do think the Cardinals, as long as it's Smyly starting, are one of the top offenses on the slate.
Yeah, completely agree. It was nearly 100 degrees on Thursday. I haven't looked at weather yet for Friday, but I'm sure it's going to be really hot and really humid in St. Louis, and that generally means lots of offense. We've got a massive fly ball pitcher here who is below average with strikeouts, and we've got a ton of right-handed power. You can certainly play left-handers against Smyly too. He's very neutral splits. So full stack for Cardinals, hunt home runs, Cardinals, whatever you want to do. Cardinals very much in play. Agree. One of the top offenses on the slate.
Yeah, they fall behind the Braves for me, but they're also easier to get to. I think there might be a couple other teams I would rank ahead, but maybe just a couple. I think they're definitely in the top 3 for me. Goldschmidt, Arenado, all of these righties against the lefties. Tyler O'Neill's still really cheap. And then, like you mentioned, Smyly, not great against lefties either. So any lefties that are in the lineup, keep them in there. And if you get Knitzer in the lineup again for Contreras not playing, then he double donked tonight. This is a dude that's weirdly hit with a lot of power this year. So he's probably one of the best.
He almost hit a third too. So
yeah,
he definitely in play against a lefty.
Knitzer and Danny Jansen, both at these super cheap price tags, I think are just like phenomenal catcher options on this slate as one-offs or part of the stack. What about the Cubs going up against Montgomery? For me, this would maybe just be like a mini stack situation. Maybe I play Morel, Gomes, Suzuki. And I mean, I guess you could even throw in Happ and Wisdom if you want to go full stack, but not among the top options on my list, but I don't think they're necessarily a bad option either.
I don't mind the full stack. Montgomery's below average with strikeouts. Bellinger has been amazing against lefties, and that's not been the case throughout his career. But for whatever reason, this year he's smashing left-handed pitching. Nobody's playing him lefty-lefty at 5,100, so I love him as a tournament option. Morel is priced way up. He's going to be unowned. I think guys like Suzuki and Gomes will catch some ownership. Happ is cheap. I think those guys will catch some ownership, but the high-end guys I don't think will have hardly any ownership at all. So I don't mind throwing Morel or Bellinger in there and adding them to the cheap guys just to differentiate quite a bit. I think I get to a full stack on them, but I definitely don't mind the mini stack either.
Oakland at Colorado. We got a Coors game. It feels like a while since we've had Coors on the slate. Yeah. Two very bad offenses, but still with an 11 total in this game. Kyle Freeland just coming back up off the IL, so I don't think we're going to have any interest there regardless, even though it's against Oakland. JP Sears on the other side of things, I actually have a little bit of interest. I have a bit of I don't know what it is. I don't know why I do this to myself, but I have a soft spot for JP Sears and Paul Blackburn. Those two Oakland pitchers I like getting to when they're cheap. And it is Coors, so I would rank him probably behind Grayson Rodriguez and Singer, but I would consider including JP Sears in my pool.
I think he's in play also. Colorado has just been atrocious against left-handed pitching. The worst offense in all of baseball, in fact, against lefties. Obviously, they get the bump going back to Coors, but they've struck out over 26.5% against lefties. Sears has some strikeout stuff. Going into Coors is obviously a huge downgrade, but he's pretty close to league average with his strikeouts, over 22%. I too prefer the other two 6K guys we already talked about, but I don't think that I would call you crazy for wanting to play Sears.
If CJ, like Chris Bryant's back on the IL, if CJ Cron misses this one again, ramp up Sears even more. But if Cron is back, that would probably lower it a little bit for me. But Cron is still a guy that's going to strike out a ton. It just lowers his it lowers his floor and keeps that ceiling probably where it is. What about the offenses in this one? It's Coors. We're going to be interested in the offense. I feel like it's going to depend a lot for ownership for me. If we see the Oakland Athletics are the highest owned team on the slate, I'll probably just X out the entire team. But if people are going like, it's Oakland, it's Colorado, I want to be spending up for all these other teams in nice weather, then yeah, I'll play some Oakland against Kyle Freeland and Coors.
Yeah, I feel very similar. Going to be completely ownership dependent on Oakland. I'm not sure I'm playing Colorado, even though it's Coors. Oakland just like bad offenses in Coors, just they work out less than you would think. Coors is definitely the best park for hitting in all of baseball, and it's not particularly close, but Oakland, Freeland always just seems to get lucky with BABIP too. It feels like he'll generate the ground balls. He's just going to pitch to contact, which is a crazy thing to do in Coors Field, but very low strikeouts. Oakland's cheap. I feel like they're going to catch a little bit of ownership here today. I'm fine with the fade if that's the case. If they are low owned, favorites would be Rooker, Langeliers, Geloff if he's near the top of the order. He's getting up there in price though. Jordan Diaz, who can fill second base. Yeah, I mean, definitely an ownership thing for me. There's not really any exciting names here at all.
I'm fine with Woodday and Laureano as well. Yep. But yeah, I'm with you. It's not super exciting, and it's going to fully depend on ownership for me. If all of a sudden I see like, okay, these guys are all near the top of the order, and I can play Jordan Diaz, Laureano, Rooker, and Giloff, and they're all going to be sub 10%, then I think they're a phenomenal stack and one of the very best stacks on the slate because it's Coors Field. But if they're among the higher owned bats on the slate, then I'm just going to play the ownership game on a 14-game slate and hit the X button on Oakland. And I feel very similar to Colorado. If Colorado is at all chalky against Sears, I'm going to bump up my Sears exposure. If nobody's playing Colorado, then yeah, I'll make as long as he's in the lineup, a stack with Crone. And Sears isn't particularly any stronger against lefties. He actually strikes out less of them. So I'll play the lefties in this spot as well. Mixing Grichuk. Hopefully Tovar is in a good lineup spot. Maybe it's Trejo. And I'll play some of these guys as well. But it's really just going to depend on ownership for me. Similar to those pitching plays we were talking about, like Scherzer and Cole. That's how I feel about this Coors game today. If they're low owned, I'm going to play a lot. If they're high owned, I'm not going to play any of them. Next game we got on this slate, we got Texas at Padres, 2 high-powered offenses going toe-to-toe in this one. We got a 8 total. Finally getting into the late slate of games. We could have a nice little 4-game slate just with these late games. There's enough offense and enough pitching in just these 4 games. But we got Musgrove at Dane Dunning. I think I would not tell you are stupid to play Dane Dunning at 6K if he was in your pool. Like, I wouldn't say you're dumb, but I'm not going to do it. I like those other 3 guys in the 6K range we talked about better going up against San Diego. And Joe Musgrove is $9,700 going up against Texas. I don't need to play either of the pitchers in this one. I would it's just a quick X spot for both of those guys for me.
It's a quick X button for both for me as well. Dunning just doesn't have any strikeout upside, and Musgrove is overpriced and in a very tough matchup against Texas.
If you told me I had no Jonah Heim and no Corey Seager for Texas, maybe and Musgrove was 8,400, I would definitely be interested in getting some Musgrove. But just at that price, I'm not interested. But I don't really want to play Seattle up against Musgrove. Seattle. I don't really want to play Texas going up against Musgrove either with no Corey Seager, no Jonah Heim. Maybe a Nate Lowe one-off, maybe a Lowe, Garcia, and somebody else mini stack. Sure, that is always in play. But outside of that, I don't think I have much interest in Texas. San Diego, on the other hand, Dunning has been pretty fine this year. But I still think San Diego has some upside going up against them.
Yeah, I don't love the price. Like you said, Dunning is a pretty solid pitcher. I just don't play him in DFS because he doesn't strike anybody out, but he does get ground balls. He has excellent control. I don't love the San Diego stack. If you want to look for, he doesn't give a lot of home runs, to be honest, either. So I'm lukewarm on San Diego. There is a lot of talent in this lineup, so I don't think you're crazy if you want to get to him. I don't think I need him on a 14-game slate.
Do you have his walk rate? What's Dunning's walk rate? Do you have that in front of you?
I do. Let's see here. 6.5%. Really solid.
Really solid. I think that might make me like Juan Soto a little bit more. Like, if Soto is going to be getting the ball in the strike zone, there's a good chance he could be knocking it out of the park. So I think he'd be my favorite one-off from this team. And even like you can always play Tatis. You can always play Machado. If you land on Bogarts now that he's dropped at 4,400, it's fine. But I'm with you. I'm probably not going to be full stack in this team. They fall well below the Atlantas and the St. Louis's for me, so the similarly priced teams. And I actually think I'd rather play Houston than San Diego in this spot as well to get a little contrarian with it. Seattle and Arizona, next one in this spot. We got a 9 total. Logan Gilbert going up against Tommy Henry. Do you have any interest in Logan Gilbert going up against Arizona?
Tough matchup here against Arizona. They make a lot of contact. They get on base and they just constantly run, and they just make life tough on a starting pitcher. I have a ton of respect for Logan Gilbert. I think he's a well above average starter. He has an elite walk rate, a slightly above average strikeout rate. Probably not the spot or the slate that I need to play him. If I playing that 4-game late slate, I could totally get on board with playing some Gilbert. I worry about the upside here in this matchup against Arizona.
He's in the same tier for me as Javier and Montgomery, of like maybe they just make a cut if they land perfectly in a lineup. I can't quite get up to Scherzer, but I have 9K left and I don't want to just leave a bunch of salary on the table. And I love the rest of my lineup. I think it's fine. I think it's totally okay, but he's not going to be a target for me. Definitely in that tier of like, maybe he just makes the cut of my pool, but probably not. Tommy Henry going up against Seattle. Seattle sure can strike out a lot, but there's no way I am ever playing Tommy Henry.
No, too many walks, not enough strikeouts. Seattle's a very powerful offense. There is strikeouts here, and he was starting to put it together there for a little bit, but looks like he's come back to earth. 4 walks in his last start. I don't need him on this slate.
Arizona is a team I think 100% of the time you can include in your pool if you're playing a ton of lineups, just because they're very good, but they're not going to be a target going up against Logan Gilbert. On the Seattle side of things, I think they have a ton of upside going up against Tommy Henry.
Yeah, I love the Seattle bats here. I mentioned the power. That's what I'm chasing here. It's a full stack because he does have that walk rate near 10%. Julio is one of my absolute favorite bats on the slate. Teoscar Hernandez is way too cheap for this matchup. Same goes for Eugenio Suarez. It's just whoever's like hopefully Raleigh's in there. If not Murphy, I'm totally fine to save the money. He's only 2,400. Seattle's in that top tier of stacks for me today.
Yeah, I am with you 100%. I think they fall below the Atlantas and the St. Louis's for me, but this is like for their price. This is one of the most like affordable stacks on the slate, and you're not going to find that many others with as high as upside as they have. So Seattle with their strikeout rates, this is always a team that can fail. But going up against a pitcher like Tommy Henry, park upgrade, they're nice and cheap. I think they are one of the top stacks on the slate as well. We got Cincinnati and we got the Dodgers, second last game of the slate. We're making some pretty good time. We're still under an hour here, and there's 14 games. So that's pretty impressive. I'm proud of ourselves. Maybe we can even talk about our Joe Burrow best ball exposure and how worried about that we are at the end of the show. But 9.5 total with Cincinnati at the Dodgers. We got Miller going up against. I accidentally exited out of the tab here, and so I have to pull it back.
Brandon Williamson.
We got Miller and Williamson. Do you have? No, you don't have interest in Williamson. I know you don't have interest in Williamson.
No chance.
What about Miller on the other side? Because Bobby Miller for 7.7, I think he might be my favorite like cash game SP2 in this spot. Big park downgrade for Cincinnati. 7.7 is just a great price tag for him, and he's one of my favorite pitchers on the slate.
Yeah, I think he's very fairly priced for this matchup. Cincinnati is much better than like their season-long numbers will show because they've called up a ton of talent here recently, but there's still a lot of strikeouts in this lineup, and there's a lot of youth in this lineup, which they tend to be free swingers. So Miller is a young guy himself, but he's proven to have strikeout stuff already. He's over 23% on the season. The leash is maybe a slight concern. It always is with Dave Roberts and the Dodgers. So I do worry a little bit about upside. Between him and Mackenzie Gore, I think it's a conversation that Gore might have a little more upside, but he certainly has more risk as well, just because of his walk rate. This matchup against Cincinnati is, I think that the Hart downgrade makes it enough to where I'll definitely have significant exposure to Miller.
So we got Luch in chat right now talking about NFL. He shout out to the Luch who organized a nice little fun Roto Grinders event that we got coming shortly. I don't know if it's a surprise, so I won't dive into it, but you're involved.
Then I won't talk about who my first pick was.
I don't know if it's a secret or not, but it's going to be a lot of fun. You may or may not have reason to be worried about Joe Burrow with what
correct.
We have going. But I have personally, I don't know what it's been on when I've been doing my DraftKings best balls, but I've been getting a lot of number 2 picks, which is of course led to a lot of Jamar Chase and a lot of Bengals stacks. So I was worried when I saw that injury today, him getting carted off, but it looks like it's just a calf strain. Hopefully going to be nothing too bad here, and we should still be getting him out at the beginning of the regular season. So a little bit of a scare, but hopefully Joe Burrow is going to be all good to go. Let's talk about pivot back to baseball. Cincinnati is, like you said, they're a strong offense now. They are way better than their season-long numbers, but still going up against the pitcher of Miller's caliber. 14-game slate, big park downgrade for them. I don't think I have any interest in Cincinnati. The Dodgers, though, I think they are in the tier 1 for me alongside the Cardinals and the Braves.
Yep, absolutely. Tier 1, one of the top offenses in baseball, tons of power. Williamson has a home run problem, and the Dodgers hit a bunch of home runs. They have not been as good against lefties, but they just added Ahmed Rosario to this team. And I'm making sure he's listed on the Dodgers. So I assume that he will be available for this game. He's only 3,900. I have no idea where they're going to slot him into the lineup. I'm guessing it's down towards the bottom, but if he grabs like the 6 hole or something like that, Ahmed Rosario is a fantastic play. I love JD Martinez, Will Smith, Freeman. You can always play lefty. Don't care that he's over 6K. Betts is a very, very top option. Like this Dodgers team is loaded with talent. Williamson is below average with the strikeouts, and he gives up way too many fly balls and way too many home runs.
I'm on the expert survey Friday morning, and I think I might put Mookie Betts as my favorite spend-up option for cash games. Like, it's Acuna, yes, is always kind of the top option, and Olsen in that lefty spot is great. But the second base eligibility for Betts going up against the lefty, his ISO this year against lefties is over 400. It's just been absolutely ridiculous. And so the second base eligibility, and I love the Dodgers. So I think Betts might be my favorite spend up option on the entire slate. He might be number 1 for me. I think it's between he or Olsen, and Betts just has even more ways to get there with the stolen base upside. So this is, I think, top 3 stack for me. I think I'd probably go Atlanta 1, the Dodgers 2, with St. Louis 3 and Seattle 4. I think those are my 4 favorite stacks on the slate. And yeah, I think the Dodgers are cheaper to get to than a team like geez, why am I blanking so much on this? Atlanta. Atlanta. A little bit cheaper than Atlanta. Very comparable to a team like St. Louis. So they're going to be one of my top on the entire slate. Probably number 2 or 3 for me. Final game. We're doing great. 7.5 total. Lowest total on the slate. We got Cutter Crawford at Logan Webb. Webb going up against Boston. He's not that high strikeout of a guy, and they're a low strikeout lineup. I don't think I need to go to Logan Webb at 10-2. I think that's somebody I can just cross off my list. He could have a great game, but he's pricey. He's pricey as well, and Boston's a tough team. So I don't think Webb is going to make my cut, but maybe he's in that similar tier as like Gilbert, Javier, and Montgomery. And then Cutter Crawford. He struggled last game, but he's actually been better lately. He gets a big park upgrade. He's shown a little bit of strikeout upside. I think he maybe falls number 4 for me behind Rodriguez, Singer, and Sears. But I actually do think that Cutter Crawford is somewhat in play if you're running a ton of lineups.
I completely agree on Webb. Same as Logan Gilbert. I think he's an awesome real-life pitcher. Don't need him on this DFS slate. He's just overpriced for a matchup against a high-contact Boston team. Crawford, I'm definitely interested in, maybe even a little more than you. I think I have him second behind Grayson Rodriguez as far as the 6K guy goes, just because Sears is in Coors, and who was the other one I'm forgetting now?
Singer.
Singer. Just a lot of power in that Minnesota team, but it'd be close between him and Crawford.
I think that's fair. You can bump him up ahead of Sears, and then it's kind of 2A and 2B for Singer and Crawford.
Yeah, but like the strikeouts are above average. The leash isn't the longest, which is why he's 6,500. Like it's baked into the price. San Francisco's a team that has talent, but they strike out a lot as well. A huge ballpark upgrade here, going from Fenway Park out west to San Francisco is one of the biggest ballpark upgrades you can get. So I think Crawford's very much in play here.
Derek makes a great point in chat. There's a good chance one of these 6K pitchers will be in the winner tomorrow. I don't even think it's crazy that 2 of them will be. I honestly think that's a super reasonable build to have to go with 2 of these guys. And like the only person that I'm genuinely afraid of putting up a score is Gausman. He's the only one that it's like, I think he could potentially double those guys. Like if those guys get 16 and he could get 32. If those guys get 20, I still think Gaussman could put up a 40 piece, like especially if Ohtani's not in that lineup. And so that would be the one guy that would really make me worry. But I do think it's interesting to try going double with those guys. If I was running 5 lineups, I might even do something like Gaussman with each of the 4, and then in one of the other 5 go double cheap, and try something like that. But what about the offenses in this slate? San Francisco, I think, is in play going up against Cutter Crawford. I have no interest in Boston in a park downgrade against a great pitcher. San Francisco, I think, is in play, but it's just a mid-tier only if you're running lots of lineup stack.
Yeah, same thoughts. No interest in Boston. San Francisco, I just hate using them because they pinch hit so much. It is a little bit softer against the righty because they usually have all their lefties, and their lefties are generally a little better. Like Jock Peterson, you can certainly play as a one-off. I don't know if I get to a full stack, but I'll probably have some exposures to some of the power lefties, I think, mainly.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Let's do the morning grind game. I'm going to try and nail it without I'm going to try and not mess up any of what the games are. I don't want the chat to tell me what it is. Only tell me if I get it wrong. I've hosted the show enough this week. I think I have it down. Favorite pitcher below 8K to get 6 or more strikeouts.
I'm going Mackenzie Gore. Don't love the matchup against the Mets, but I do love the ballpark, and I love his strikeout stuff.
I appreciate you leaving me with my guy. Bobby Miller has been one of my favorite pitchers to target all season long. Anytime he's on the slate, I play him, and it almost always goes well. So Bobby Miller is going to be the guy that I'm going to be going with. Pitcher over 8K that you think will bust, 15 or less points.
I'm going to leave Curry out of this because that's just a ridiculous price. Christian Javier against Tampa Bay. Just don't like the way he's been struggling. A few too many lefties in this lineup, and Tampa Bay is still at least solidly above average on offense.
I'll go Mitch Keller going up against Philly, just way too expensive. I don't know if they'll necessarily get under 15. Same with Joe Musgrove. I don't know if they'll necessarily get under 15, but for their prices, I think they're going to be pretty massive busts. So I'm going to go with Mitch Keller. Favorite hitter below 4K to get 2 or more hits.
I forgot to write this one down, so let me take a look here. Let's see. And we're staying out of Coors, of course.
Yeah, don't look at the YouTube chat. I'm going to guess who yours is going to be, and I want to see if it's right. I'm typing it in the YouTube chat, and so we're going to see if I'm right. Shout out to Derek and Michael in chat saying I did a great job this week. I appreciate you guys. That means a lot. It's a little nerve-wracking doing the full host job, so I appreciate that. Who do you got?
If you're thinking that I'm thinking Cubs, you're on the right trail. Give me against the lefty. I just love the way Yan Gomes hits against left-handed pitching. I'm going Yan Gomes at 3,200. Oh, that's a better answer actually. Ahmed Rosario is, if he's in the lineup and available, I love it. Ahmed Rosario at 3,900 as well.
Maybe that's.
I was trying to do it on the fly, but yeah, I love that call.
Maybe that's just the answer I should go with here, Ahmed Rosario. But I'm trying to get a little bit different here. I'm going to go with Tyler O'Neill as my guy.
Like that
Actually,
too.
no. Yeah. I'm going to go with Eddie Rosario. I'm not going to go with Ahmed. I'm going to go with Eddie because Atlanta is my favorite team on the slate, and he is below 4K. Favorite hitter above 5K to hit a home run.
Give me JD Martinez. Has a long career of smashing lefties, and he gets a fly ball lefty today.
I'm going to go with Vlad Guerrero, one of the, I think, top contrarian options on the slate that today is going to be Toronto. And so they're going to be one of my favorite sneaky stacks. I think I'll probably write them up as my favorite sneaky stack, them or Houston on the expert survey today. But Vladimir Guerrero, 5,100, just over 5K. He's going to be knocking one out of the park. Oh, I should have gone Jansen, Derek, for my below 4K 2-hit pick. That would have been a good one. But that'll do it for the morning grind. We're off on the weekend, but I will be on crunch time on Friday. I'll be on Crunch Time Saturday and Sunday as well. So you're still going to be getting lots of me. And Stevie, I believe, will be back on Monday for the morning grind. If you're still with us live, make sure you hit that like button before you get out of here. If you're watching us on YouTube the next day, Friday morning with your coffee, make sure you hit the like button there as well. Big 14-game slate. We got lots and lots of content with Chiefs Take Your Pick'em show, the expert survey, consensus value rankings, Grinders Live, Crunch Time, and all that great stuff on Friday. So make sure you tune in because there's probably going to be a lot of news on a slate so large with the trade deadline looming. Lots of players we're expecting to play. They might be on different teams by the time their games hit tomorrow. So make sure you stay tuned to Crunch Time, to Grinders Live, because there should be a lot going on. I am TJ. This is Keith. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next week or for the morning grind.